If you think you know who won between Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great, then forget it. What if I told you that Caesar was actually the better strategist? And no, not in the way that people say, oh, he's smarter because he defeated Pompey. I mean, he is genuinely smarter. We can prove it. There's evidence to back it up. So today we're gonna explore how his mind worked, how it compares to Alexander's, and why ultimately Caesar deserves the title of the superior general more than Alexander does. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nightforge. I'm your host, and this is the first episode in our brand new series, The Genius of Julius Caesar, where we are going to unravel the mind of one of history's greatest military titans. Forget everything you think you know about ancient history's greatest generals. While both Alexander and Caesar carved their names into eternity, their paths, their strategies, and their ultimate impacts were radically different. And at the end of this series, you'll have all the tools you need to definitively argue for who was the superior visionary and empire builder. To understand what made Caesar tick, we have to start with where he came from, but don't expect a traditional narrative here. This series is all about blowing your mind and showing you the past like you've never seen it before. And that means that we're gonna be jumping right into the action with a cinematic reimagining of Caesar's origins. No voiceover narration here. Just let the images speak for themselves. So what do you think? If you were an ancient Roman senator, would you have supported Caesar or Pompey? Let me know your thoughts down below. And while you're at it, if you want more from us in the future, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss out when we drop a new video every single week. Let's start with the basics. Gaius Julius Caesar was born in 100 BCE to a wealthy patrician family. His father had been a prominent politician, and his mother was related to two famous legendary founders of Rome. The boy was destined for greatness, but that didn't mean he didn't have a lot of growing to do. Caesar started his career serving in the military under the orders of his political allies. He saw combat against the Gauls, and he also gained valuable experience in diplomacy. But it was during these early years that he also developed his reputation for ruthlessness, which he displayed by allegedly killing a hostage while on campaign. This was important because unlike many other aristocratic Romans, Caesar wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. While his contemporaries thought of generals as primarily political figureheads, Caesar understood that he had to lead from the front. But it wasn't just his willingness to jump into the thick of battle that set Caesar apart. It was also his keen understanding of the Roman public's fickle nature. In a system where popularity was power, Caesar knew that he needed to cultivate an image of invincibility. And so he famously used his opponent's surrender as a prop in a triumphal procession, showcasing himself as the epitome of Roman strength and fortitude. This ability to project power and dominate the public imagination would become one of Caesar's greatest strengths. Throughout his life, Caesar seemed aware of how his actions would play out in the public sphere, and he expertly cultivated an image of himself as a champion of the common people. Meanwhile, his rivals often failed to grasp the significance of popular opinion and instead focused on solidifying their own power. For example, consider Crassus, a member of the first triumvirate alongside Caesar, who despite being incredibly wealthy, failed to understand the value of using that wealth to gain political influence. Unlike Caesar, who lavished gifts on the Roman populace, Crassus hoarded his fortune. And that's the key difference. Caesar understood that in Republican Rome, the most valuable resource wasn't land or gold, it was the people themselves. By appealing to their interests, fears, and aspirations, Caesar built a base of support that allowed him to rise above his rivals and reshape Rome itself. But while Caesar understood how to build up support, he was also willing to tear down anyone who stood in his way. This brings us to one of the most pivotal moments in Caesar's early career, his defeat of Pompey. While Caesar's victory over Pompey is often attributed to his sheer military prowess, there's a deeper layer to this conflict. It was a clash of worldviews. Caesar represented a new kind of Roman, one who was willing to break the rules and challenge the status quo in pursuit of greater power. Pompey, on the other hand, embodied the old Roman order, a system that relied on tradition, precedent, and the established elite. Their conflict wasn't just a battle for supremacy, it was a struggle to define the very essence of Rome itself. In a sense, Caesar was fighting against the expectations placed upon him by his aristocratic upbringing. Like many of his elite contemporaries, he could have chosen to live a life of luxury and ease, satisfied with amassing wealth and influence within the existing system. But instead, he rejected this path and forged his own. Of course, it wasn't easy. The struggle against Pompey was brutal and costly, and Caesar's victory came at a great price, but it was a price he was willing to pay because the alternative, maintaining the status quo, went against the core of his being. For Caesar, the fight for Rome was personal, a crusade to transform a city that had stagnated into a new center of power. He was driven by a relentless ambition, a desire to achieve more than what anyone had ever done before. This is what set him apart from Alexander the Great. Sure, they both craved power and glory, but Alexander did it to satisfy his ego and lust for conquest. Caesar, on the other hand, wanted to leave a legacy, an indelible mark on the world that would outlive him. Alexander cared about being the best. Caesar wanted to be remembered as the best. When we compare Caesar to other generals like Hannibal Barca, for instance, we see another key difference. While Hannibal was a brilliant tactician and strategist, he lacked Caesar's charisma and drive for total domination. Hannibal was content with inflicting damage on Rome, whereas Caesar wanted to remake Rome in his own image. Caesar didn't just want to beat Rome's enemies, he wanted to absorb their lands and their people into his own growing empire. That's what made him truly revolutionary. And it's here where we begin to see how Caesar was actually smarter than Alexander. Alexander was great at expanding the borders of his empire. Caesar was great at integrating new peoples into his collapse. Alexander couldn't even hold on to what he conquered. Caesar built an empire that lasted for centuries, while Alexander's conquests laid the foundations for Western civilization. Caesar brought it to fruition. You see, Alexander was driven by his personal ambition and desire for glory, whereas Caesar was motivated by a genuine belief in his mission to reshape the world. This fundamental difference in motivation led them down radically different paths. Caesar's transformation of Rome was nothing short of astonishing. He reformed the calendar, reorganized the tax system, and launched ambitious building projects. He also played a crucial role in ending the protracted civil war that had torn the Republic apart. Under his leadership, Rome emerged as a more centralized and efficient state, laying the groundwork for the Pax Romana, a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity. But perhaps Caesar's greatest legacy was the way he changed the very definition of what it meant to be Roman. He broadened the franchise to include more of the Roman population, thereby increasing their political participation. And he championed the rights of the common people against the excesses of the aristocracy. In doing so, Caesar reshaped Roman society and left an indelible mark on the course of Western civilization. Alexander the Great may have carved out vast territories for Hellenism, but it was Caesar who truly expanded the boundaries of Roman culture and values. Caesar's vision was not just territorial conquest. It was the integration of diverse peoples and cultures into a cohesive whole. He recognized that true power lay not just in dominating others, but in uniting them under a common banner. And yet, despite all his achievements, Caesar's story ended in tragedy. Betrayed by his own friend and ally Brutus, Caesar was assassinated in the Senate, ending his life and his potential. But his death only solidified his place in history. As the first emperor of Rome, Caesar became the archetype of the powerful leader, both feared and revered. Now it's time for you to join the conversation. What do you admire more about Caesar or Alexander? Which of them do you think had the greater impact on history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe. New episodes premiere every single week. Thanks for watching. Until next time.